Latinos are fairly represented in TV series and telenovelas. I think there's not adequate representation in mainstream films, but that's mostly because of the films that we cater to and the kind of films that we make.
I really feel like Latinos are not represented um, very well at all in the entertainment industry, but I think we've made definite strides.
Latinos in the entertainment industry are mostly um, niche. They're placed in niche markets, niche movies. If you notice a lot of the shows, there are police shows, you will find Latinos there being detectives or being the bad guy. As well as in films, documentaries, true stories. I think the lack of diversity, in my opinion, is overstated from the standpoint that the Oscars is, in my, again, this is my opinion, the Oscars caters to movies that are for the general public. A lot of the Hispanics that come here to the United States, they want to assimilate, and they do. And in doing so, they pretty much also assimilate into the cultural what the culture is craving for. It could be action movies. It could be movies about fantasy, but that's just basically what the general audience wants.
That's something that's always affected Latinos. So I think that it shouldn't it shouldn't only be about one racial group, because unfortunately Latinos are not really represented in that. The boycott, it was more African American, the lack of diversity. But I think people forget about Latinos and their contributions, and Asians, all of that. Like, I mean, I think Salma Hayek was nominated for Oscar a few years ago, but she had to play a Latina, like it was Frida. So she, I mean, it's just something that needs to be thought of more as more holistic and not just one group.
I think it's the first time we've made a big deal about the lack of diversity. I think lack of diversity has been there for a long time, but now it's becoming more prominent, more noticed, and we're starting to make a bigger deal about it. I think it's just making a statement that maybe we need to reevaluate how we're making our films. Maybe our audience is changing. Maybe we need to make more films that focus on minorities so that we can pull more minorities into those films. But basically, it's more conscious. We're becoming more aware, more conscious, and it just means we continue working harder. And any Latino that wants to be in the movie industry or the film industry, they just have to work harder, but eventually they'll get there.
What I've been seeing more in film and TV is that Latinos are not necessarily playing Latino characters anymore. Like we're playing, like for example, like America Ferrera is in that new show called Superstore, and I mean, there's nothing ever mentioned about her being Latina. She's just there, and she's really great at what she does. So I feel like, we're starting to get more roles that we're not necessarily having to have the accent, having to talk, be a stereotype anymore. So I feel like the fact that we're going and we're, buying movie tickets and all of that, that's having a big impact, because we're not, plus I don't think a lot of us are expecting to have our stereotypes shoved into our face. So that's why, I mean, I think it's definitely going to make a big impact.
I think there's always room for developing niche films, niche short stories. That's something that is coming up now. Independent films, they form a big part of what the United States can see and learning from other cultures, whether it's the Middle East or Latin America. So minorities, in this case, Latinos could bring in more of what goes on within the different countries, as they come from so many different regions within Latin America, that I think there's a lot that they can bring to the table.
Well, yes, I think we have all kinds of Latinos. In the United States, we have Latinos from who speak Spanish only, who are bilingual, who are bicultural. But that segment is growing, and by that I mean it will change what we want to see in the movies. There will always be the regular popularity that we have today with our mainstream films. But I think because of the diversity in our Latinos, we're starting to see more diversity. I personally have an interest in independent films. I don't watch mainstream films as much, but that's my personal interest. But I think you're starting to see that as Latino buyers, I mean, we have a fourth, right? We're a fourth, and over time we're going to grow over the next 30 years. I think at this time we're about 16% Latino. So if we want to continue competing in that space, we're going to have to continue thinking about what do the various Latinos want to see. And it's a challenge. It's hard because we're so different. Again, you have the immigrant, you have the Spanish speaker only, you have the bicultural one, you have the bilingual one, the multilingual one, you have the one from Puerto Rico, the one from Mexico, from Latin America. So we're extremely diverse, but it's a challenging opportunity.
An actor that I really I felt he did an excellent job in the role that he played was in Born in East LA, his Cheech Marine.
Yeah.
The story was an excellent story because it basically goes to the heart of where a lot of Latinos from Mexico, Central America have gone through in order to come here to the States and excuse me, come here to the United States and seek a greater opportunity. It is a comedy, but along with all the comedy, he presents the facts and what these folks have gone through in order to do better for themselves and their family.
Yeah, I really like Edward James Olmos. I think he's a great example. He's an example because I'm Mexican American, he's Mexican American, so I personally can relate to him. I can also relate in how he wants to give back to his community because we see the challenges, so we want to give back wherever possible. So I think he's a good example of a great actor. He selects movies where he's quite inspirational, but he really lives the part and really does give back.
I can't think of that many in the entertainment industry, but for example, Sonia Sotomayor, she's a Supreme Court justice. That's definitely inspiring because it shows that someone that, is from my culture and that looks like me can make it to that, point. So definitely someone like her. She's been a big inspiration. And I love America Ferrera. I mean, I think you probably know that. But, she's just shown that you don't have to play a part of yourself that's not true to make it. So, yeah.